Welcome to another welding video. Today we're going to be going over gas metal arc welding. And so we start to see some changes in the equipment and then also in the variables that we're setting when compared to SMAW. So the very first thing that you're going to notice is different is the MIG gun. So where with SMAW we used an electrode holder and we would have to constantly change out the electrodes as soon as we were finished with them, we have more of a semi-automatic, process where we can just touch the button or, essentially pull the trigger of the MIG gun and the wire electrode feeds out. And so we start using GMAW when we start thinking about production times, where we start needing faster travel speeds, higher deposition rates, stuff like that. And then the other big thing that we're going to see change when we start using GMAW is we're no longer setting amperage. We're instead changing wire feed speed, so the rate at which the electrode feeds through the MIG gun, and then voltage. So if we remember from prior videos, voltage, you can kind of think of that as the electrical pressure. And so when we're using GMAW, we need to remember that we're using a constant voltage power source. We need that constant voltage to help stabilize the arc as we're welding with these wire-fed processes. So what we have today, we're using a Vulcan OmniPro 220. And so with this particular machine, if you're ever wondering about what settings I should be using, no problem. If we just go ahead and click this button right here, we can tell the machine what size diameter electrode we're using and then what thickness of material we're using. All right, so once you've set those in, go ahead and confirm. The machine is going to give you some preset variables, but we're still able to kind of change it from there. If you get to welding, find out that this just isn't working for you, you can go ahead and adjust your wire feed speed as needed. Same thing with voltage. So what we can use to get started with GMAW is just get one piece of plate, and then we can start practicing some surface welds in the flat position, just like we would do with SMAW, so that way we kind of get the hang of it. We know how to run the bead, we know what to look at when we're welding. And as far as angle goes, we get our MIG gun. So our work angle when we're welding in the flat position, so if we get kind of a side profile of it, you should just come straight up and down with your MIG gun. All right, you don't have to point away from you, you don't have to point towards you, just come straight up and down. So that right there is a good work angle for flat position. And then if we start looking at travel angle, I'm right-handed, so my left, your right. I'm gonna start here, progress in this direction. Still same thing, up and down work angle with a slight drag angle. So, maybe 10 to 15 degrees, all right? And then so as far as putting a weave in your bead, you can do one of two things. You can either just pull straight across in your weld, or you can do any number of movements with your MIG gun. You can use a circle technique with your oscillation. You can do kind of like a skip forward, come back, skip forward, come back, sort of like a whipping motion. There are a lot of different methods out there for oscillation. You can find what works for you in the application that you're working with. All right, so now that we've got angles out of the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down two different welds. One of them is just going to be a stringer bead where I just drag it from side to side. And then the second one, I'm going to add a little bit of a circular oscillation movement in there. So that way you can see that the two different methods of putting down welds can essentially achieve the same thing. All right, let me go ahead and just give these a quick brush. All right, so as we get in kind of close to these welds, so this one right here is what I was talking about as far as doing just a straight stringer bead, starting at one end, dragging it just straight across, not a whole lot of movement. And then this second weld right here is where I gave it a circular motion with my oscillation. So you can kind of tell the difference in the ripple pattern. You can see some of this overlap, you know, compared to the overlapping ripples with the stringer bead.